Good morning, all. What do you mean I forgot to hit the go live? Aren't we live? I think we're live. It says we're
We
live.
are. We are live.
All right. Welcome to the chat. Mark the Inflatired and Thomas Potts. And I am live. I didn't forget to do nothing. I just forgot to hit the thing before I hit the go live, but that's okay.
I see the stream going on YouTube, so we're live.
All right. Well, that's good. That means I did my job right. Yay!
You did it right.
All right. So
For
just
once.
Yeah, for once I did something right. There's a miracle. Write that down on the calendar. So
Today
after
in history.
Yeah, no kidding. Yitzy says, I shall not refresh. Are you shit? Are you sure you hit the live? Well, it says I'm live, so I must have. Don't.
Well, did you hit it or did you click it?
I might have hit it. Oh, but
okay.
anyway, quick little announcements for the channels coming up this week. I'm hoping that we have all our shows in line. We'll have the roundtable on Friday that will drop here on History with R&R. I'm hoping Wednesday will be the next day of the radio show. Should be dropping. It'll be on Leo Seacourt, which is something I thought would be kind of cool because I don't think a lot of people know that story. So I think it'd be really cool for people to be able to learn about that little portion because that usually doesn't get taught a lot. So I think it'd be kind of cool. So
I didn't know about it, and I love the script.
Yeah, it won't be a very long radio show. It's not a big, long, labor-intensive one, but it's a really quick one, and it's just a little known part of history that's kind of cool. So looking forward to dropping that probably Wednesday because I've still got some editing to do. So it'll probably come out on Wednesday. Over on Rambling Canuck, we're going to have the two Minecraft stream. Well, one Minecraft stream. There won't be one on Thursday. I have to go in for my biopsy on my kidney. So I'm taking Thursday and the rest of the weekend off till Monday, till we're back here on History with R&R. So basically, everything should be programming as usual this week, except for there will not be the secondary Minecraft stream on Thursday, and there will not be karaoke this week on Rambling Canuck because, as I said, Thursday I go in for a biopsy, so I'm going to be down for a couple of days. And with all that said, our topic today is going to be MacArthur. But before we get to MacArthur, and also I just want to quickly shout out Colin P. Welcome, sir. Hopefully you're having a good day. So good morning, Purple.
Hello, Purple Valkyrie.
So before we get into MacArthur, I saw something this morning, and it pissed me off. So I'm going to do a little bit of a rant, so you'll all have to indulge me here. Even Jeff, poor Jeff, doesn't know what's coming.
It's going to be interesting, whatever it is, I'm sure.
So there's a dark part of Canadian history that's referred to as the residential school era, which is when the Catholic Church and the government decided that Aboriginal people needed a special school and that they needed to go to these schools and they were treated pretty badly, and it's a really dark part in our history. And recent events have uncovered a mass grave of 215 kids on a residential school property, an old residential school property. They've uncovered a mass grave of 215 kids. And that's sad. And it's a really shitty part in our history. It's not something that, as a Canadian, we're very proud of. But it happened. However, this morning I happened to gander at Twitter, and some idiots have decided that we need to cancel Canada Day, which is our July the 4th, due to it. which I think is absolute BS.
More cancer, cancel culture.
Yes.
If I can talk, I might sound intelligent if I could talk.
So, because we have this dark part in our history, we're to cancel Canada Day. Which makes no sense to me. Absolutely no sense to me. And because bad things happened, we have to feel ashamed to be Canadian now. Because we have bad moments in our history.
Well, Americans have been told that for a while now.
Well, yeah, so, and here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. It was the British at the time. So go cancel their day. But you know, and a lot of it has to do with the Catholic Church, and it's a very, very touchy subject. And I'm surprised that my stream is still going because I mentioned it. I actually am. I was fully expecting them to kill it because it's a highly contested, highly political thing. And I cannot fathom or understand this mindset where if you have, you know, we have to cancel things and you're forever making up for the past. How the fuck are you supposed to do anything in the future? If you're forever worrying about stuff that happened 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. And I mean, to be fair, residential schools were around in the 80s. So this isn't like 1642. There are people alive today that were in a residential school. And it was a shit thing. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This was stupid. This was cruel. This was wrong. The things that happened and took place in those environments were absolutely unforgivable. However, we're in 2021. You cannot move on if you're focused on the past. You cannot look forward if you're too busy looking behind you. And we need to learn that as a civilization. Because if we're always just worrying about what happened back then, and we're too busy focusing on trying to make things right, you're never going to be able to make things right all the time. There's just some things that you have to move on. And these people do not want to move on. And I'm probably gonna get in shit for this, but whatever. To cancel Canada Day makes no damn sense, especially considering we're in this pandemic stuff and we're still locked down. Like I understand you guys have, by you guys I mean the Americans are, you know, starting to go to football games, starting to go to it's very much different up here. We're still pretty locked down, especially here in Manitoba. We're still really locked down. Montreal, they were allowed to have people at hockey games. But here
depends on where you are here. Some places are more locked down than others. Some are wide open.
Our schools here in Manitoba are still closed. Our casinos are closed. Stores are closed. Everything's closed. You're still not supposed to go anywhere. Last I heard, we're still not allowed to have company over. It's still a lockdown. And so we're taking away, we're supposed to cancel another event. And I think that's happened too much right now. We're canceling too many. We've canceled Christmas. We've canceled Easter. We keep canceling all these things. Don't go to your family during Thanksgiving. Don't go to your family during Christmas. Don't go to your family during Easter. Don't go to your family. Don't May long weekend. It's usually a big family event here. No, don't do that. Don't go see your family. Don't go do this. Don't do that. Don't do that. And now, even so much as like Canada Day last year was damn depressing. It's, you know, there's usually whole bunch of events, everything else. We didn't have any of that last year. None of it. And we're
looking like our fourth last year.
Yeah, it's looking to be the same thing this year. And it's like, oh, well, because this happened, cancel Canada Day, and you should be ashamed to be Canadian. You should be ashamed. It's like, no, we are not who we were then. Right? And I think that's the message that gets missed. We're not who we were then. Like, there's been progress, leaps and bounds made since then. And it's like, yeah, no. Well, you're still not done paying for this. It's like, like,
it's like here in the States, they want, some people want us to pay for what happened to blacks, 1600, 1700, 1800s. We didn't do that. Why should we pay?
Yeah. But I mean, and it goes, and it's not just that, it's everything. I mean, if you think about it, like everything is, we're always so focused on what was done back here, and we're not focused on where we are as a people right now. You know, we look back and we give the reverence that is deserved for what was, you know, what happened then. But we have come so far. We have done so much. And it doesn't seem to matter anymore. It's always the same line. And it becomes frustrating because you really can't celebrate anything anymore. And that gets kind of annoying because we're too busy worrying about every negative thing that has ever happened. We don't see the positives because we're too busy focused on what this person did or that person did. Even like within our communities, within everything, we're always so busy worrying about all the negative that we don't see the positive. We really don't. All we see are negative impacts. That's all we see. News is built that way. Turn on your news broadcast. I'll tell you this right now. There won't be a good heartwarming story on there for anything. And if it is, it's at the bottom of the hour, buried underneath a whole bunch of bullshit. I guarantee it. Because we don't care about the good stuff that's going on. That's not what we care about. As a civilization, that's not what we care about. We care about the bad. That's all we care about.
We want to hear about people suffering.
Yeah. That's all we care about. We do not care the good that's being done. Don't care. What we focus on are the negative, and then when negative happens, we don't understand why negative is happening because we're focusing on all the negative. There's an old saying, the self-fulfilling prophecy. And we do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Even in our own communities, in our, friendships, your friend can be there 9 times out of 10, but all we remember is the one time he wasn't.
Cinnabon has a suggestion for Canadians. Time for Canadians to rise up.
Yeah, there's this little thing called winter that we just kind of go, screw it. It's not worth it. Minus 40, screw that. I'm kidding, of course. But, and I think we need to really stop and think, because we hold people to this high standard that ourselves can't meet 9 times out of 10. And again, like I said, I really think we need to take a pause because we do it all the time where, in our friendships and our relationships and our communities, your friend's there for you 9 times out of 10, but you only remember the one time he wasn't. Or, you know, stuff like that, and it becomes the way that we look at things. Everything is negative. We always see the negative in everything, and we're always so quick to jump on the negative stories. We're always so quick to jump on the negative feelings, the negative feedback. We don't celebrate each other anymore. We don't. And I think that's really missing from the world. And I think it could do a lot more if we just started celebrating what was going right and stopped focusing on everything that was going wrong. I mean, you still have to look at that stuff, but you gotta balance. Otherwise, I mean, it just it just doesn't make any sense to me. But enough of my rant.
Wow, you've been going about 20 minutes now?
Yeah. See what happens when I get all freaking up on my soapbox.
Well, I made for a good topic. I'm glad you brought it up.
But anyway, enough about my soapbox. We're here for MacArthur, who got on his own soapbox and got smacked down for it.
I think we all have from time to time.
So, MacArthur is mainly known for World War II as the general who defended the Philippines, left the Philippines, and then returned triumphantly, retook the Philippines, and then became commander-in-chief in basically in Japan post-war. So MacArthur is really a story of two generals. In World War II, he was a great commander. He was looked upon as a hero. Then you fast forward to Korea, and that kind of gets tarnished. Because in Korea, MacArthur ends his career in disgrace. Sent home by the president. And he kind of fades away into history after that. And I think you can learn a lot from looking at MacArthur. Because MacArthur got too big for his britches real quick. He started to believe his own hype. Which was never a good thing. And he started to believe that he could do anything.
I didn't know he retired before World War II. And then they brought him back.
Yeah, they brought him back. And for Korea.
Well, they brought him back for World War II.
Yeah. And, like, MacArthur, he was a good general, but then he got into politics. And it bit him in the ass.
It does to a lot of people.
MacArthur basically, MacArthur's flaw was MacArthur believed that MacArthur could do anything. He could beat anything. And basically the crux of the matter is, at the end of it, MacArthur believed that China would not cross in and would not interfere. And that he could go all the way to China's border and they wouldn't do anything. MacArthur, in his arrogance, Truman told him, and the orders from above was, you do not go above the parallel. You do not cross into North Korea. You halt. And MacArthur went, screw that, and kept pushing and kept pushing. And the reports were coming in. China's building up. They're feeling threatened. Stop now. And MacArthur went, they won't do anything. What are you talking about? Don't worry about it. I got this. And he kept going, and he kept going, and then finally China did cross into Korea. And because of that, because MacArthur wouldn't listen, MacArthur was sent home. I mean, you could really dissect it and break it down. I mean, you know you're in trouble when the President of the United States flies to you and tells you to stand down and you still give the finger to the President. You're going home. So MacArthur, depending on what era you're looking at, MacArthur was a hero, but he always dabbled in politics, right?
Well, Thomas Potts points out some believe that Truman viewed MacArthur as a threat to his reelection. That's why he fired him.
Yes. Well, both MacArthur and Eisenhower.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, Eisenhower as well. He also says he was not MacGyver.
No.
No, he was not MacGyver.
Good morning, Mary's Game Room.
Morning, Mary.
But yeah, so like MacArthur, he allowed his ego to get the best of him. And in some ways, I mean, he was fighting the wrong war. He won. I mean, MacArthur, as far as MacArthur was concerned, he was ready to go into China. The United States could kick their ass too. Well, they came. We'll go into China too, without looking at the grand scheme of things. It was kind of, well, my way or the highway, and Truman ended up giving him the highway. And
Which
I think
was probably the smart thing for him to do.
Yeah.
Could have started a world war.
Yes. Well, actually, if MacArthur would have had his way, he probably would have. But MacArthur, even though he had intelligence, and I think we can learn a lot from the story of MacArthur, and I'm not doing it any good justice here, but I mean, we're not going to be able to. If you were to sit here and really break down MacArthur, you'd have to sit here for like 6 hours, and I don't have that kind of time. So we're really giving this a 30,000 feet looking down kind of overview of MacArthur. But I think we can learn a lot of lessons from that story, from what happened. We can learn a lot, because if MacArthur had stopped and MacArthur had listened to the people around him, instead of just believing that he was right and everybody else was wrong, and actually took a moment to maybe accept he was wrong in certain aspects, Korea would have probably turned out a little different. China probably would have never gotten involved. But, he kept, all the intelligence pointed that the closer you get to China's border, they're already feeling threatened. You need to stop. And he was not hearing any of it. He wouldn't hear it. China won't get involved. Then China does get involved. Well, then we'll defeat them too. He got a little too
He got too big for his britches.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to put it. He got too big for his britches. He let his ego rule him.
Yeah, he certainly did.
The President of the United States, your commander-in-chief, flies out to you and says, no further. Do not push anymore. All the intelligence shows, if you keep pushing, China is going to get involved. We don't want China involved. And he just ignored him and carried on. Like, you can't ignore your president. I mean, MacArthur had his good points. I mean, you go back to World War II, and as admirable as it was that MacArthur didn't want to leave his station in the Philippines, because he didn't. He was forced. He got the order, you must leave. You must leave now. But I mean, some of it was staged. It was politically staged. When he returns, his big return to the Philippines, it was made to show him in a certain light. And he started to believe his own hype. You know,
well, he had aspirations.
It was him that retook the Philippines, not the men and women who, kind of fought the war. But it was all him. It was all him. He did it all. And he just believed his own hype, and he was too worried about, no, I'm right, you're wrong, and he wouldn't listen to anybody. And it ended up costing him his career. And it's one of those stories where it's the biggest fall from grace, because, and you see it today. You see it in things today. People get, I mean, I hate to bring this up, but I mean, you look at celebrities, right? They get a certain degree of success, and then it's, well, my movie can't be bad because I sucked. It must be something else.
Never my fault.
Yeah, it's never my fault. It's got to be somebody else's. It's never my fault. And MacArthur had that mindset. Well, no. This could never happen. Well, yeah, we've got the information right here. Chinese are getting ready to invade. No, they're not. Yes, they are. No, they're not. I'm right, you're wrong. Shut up. And it costed MacArthur. MacArthur ended up taking the fall for it. Could it now? The argument does get raised. Should Truman have canned him? I think so, because he wouldn't follow orders. And even if you are a 4-star general or a 3-star general or a lieutenant, you have to follow orders. And when your commander-in-chief tells you no further, stop, and you go, screw you, I'm doing it anyway. You can't have that in your military. Your commanders have to be able to take orders. If they can't take the orders, and they have a god complex, which he ended up having to some degree. He was right, everybody else was wrong, and he knew what was best, nobody else did. And it came back and bit him in the ass, and he got sent home. And that was the end of MacArthur. He also tried to wear too many hats. He was a general. He was trying to get elected. He was making points to, start a political life while still in command of soldiers, and it just came back and bit him in the ass. And good morning, Loki's Mornings of Mischief. Hopefully you're doing well. Drive safe, my brother.
Morning, Loki.
But I mean, MacArthur's story is one of great triumph and great tragedy. Because the man will always be known as the hero of the Philippines. But at the end of his career, he goes down in disgrace because he allowed his ego and he allowed his, I guess, his ego and his must be right to make him do some pretty stupid stuff. And it happens to everybody. It happens to the best of us. You get.
I thought he was infallible.
Yeah. He could not lose. He was right. Everybody else was wrong. And it's a warning that no matter how successful you get, you still have to remember that there are people that know more than you. Whether you're at the top of the food chain or at the bottom of the food chain. You have to listen to others, and you can't have this wall, I'm right, they're wrong. Because you're not always right. No one is. And the minute that you believe your own hype, as it were, which is basically what it was, you're doomed to fail. Because you stop listening. And you just keep doing. And yeah, Mark, the entire points out, he loses a war that was never a war, it was a police action. Which is still, actually, they didn't lose the war still goes on to this day, technically. It's one of those little things that nobody really pays attention to, but technically, the Korean War never ended. It's still technically ongoing. It's just at a ceasefire.
Which I find fascinating.
Yeah, the war technically never ended. It's just at a ceasefire. Which is why North Korea can get so many tabloids so quick. Because technically, Canada, Britain, the United States are still tied to South Korea. If they ever cross the parallel, we have to go. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The Americans, the Canada, and the Brits all have to. They've all signed treaties, which is why that's kept the ceasefire there for so long. Is because we're committed. We have been committed since the ceasefire was drawn up. That part's just not mentioned very often. But MacArthur made a lot of mistakes in the Korean War because he was. A lot of it was he was working off of his good his goodwill due to World War II. You know, a lot of people figured, well, MacArthur knows what he's talking about. Look how good he was in World War II.
And speaking of that, doing some reading, I didn't know how well regarded he was in Australia.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. He was considered the savior. The Tokyo, Japan had all the islands around Australia taken over. Australia was just worried, that they were going to go in and take over Australia. He went down there and protected Australia with his troops.
Well, yes.
Well,
yes and no. MacArthur had the best propaganda field in World War II than anybody else in the world. A lot of his stuff that he's regarded for was staged. Like a lot of the stuff that was done. MacArthur fought hard, and you can't take that away from him. He fought hell of a hard for the Philippines and for Australia. And he fought to get the troops the supplies. He would go to bat, but a lot of it had it was a ends to a means, so to speak. And if you follow MacArthur's history, MacArthur was always careful about what was written about him. He was very careful about how he was seen in the press. A lot of the stuff was censored. MacArthur had a lot of help to get where he was. He forgot all that when he got to Korea. MacArthur.
Well, like you said, he acts like he does it all, so
yeah,
that's the perception.
MacArthur is the living proof. Sorry, I can speak English, I promise.
Oh, I've been having trouble with that all morning, so no problem.
MacArthur is the living proof of the old adage, pride comes before the fall. MacArthur's pride got the best of him.
Mm-hmm.
MacArthur's belief that MacArthur was right and MacArthur could do it all got the best of him.
Yep.
And MacArthur is the living proof that pride comes before the fall. And he allowed ego, he allowed politics, he allowed his self-belief in himself to go too far. And when he went too far, he got pulled home. And to this day, people argue back and forth. It's contested whether Truman should have sacked MacArthur. Whether there are some people that even argue whether MacArthur should have been in Korea in the first place anyway. Been out of the game for a while. There were new strategies. There was new weapons to use. MacArthur even at one point had mentioned nuking. Wanted nukes on the table.
Colin P. Smith noted that earlier. There was Harry Turtledove's alternate history series. We're talking about nuking Korea.
Yeah.
North Korea.
Yeah. So, I mean, all this was brought up. I mean, and to this day, you have two MacArthurs. You have MacArthur of World War II, and you have Korea MacArthur. One is a hero, and one goes home in disgrace. And it just depends on how you look at it. At the end of the day, his ego got the best of him. And due to bad judgment and bad decisions, he ended up going home in disgrace. And it's really sad because it really points out to everybody that it can happen to anybody. And I mean, MacArthur really, really puts things into perspective. If you look at what happened and how it happened, you get to see a lot of stuff within history that you wouldn't think of. Like a lot of MacArthur's history is based upon how you frame something, what the narrative is at the time. World War II, like I said, he's seen as a hero. He's seen as the protector of Australia and the defender of the Philippines. The famous last words, "I shall return." And then he And then he allows that hype, that very hype that he built up, to influence his decisions. It no longer became acting on intelligence, it became acting on ego. He couldn't be seen as wrong. So therefore he put men and women's lives in danger and at risk to prove a point that he was right and everybody else was wrong. And it cost American lives at the end of the day. And, well, at the end of the day, he was sent home. So I wanted to bring this up, and again, I apologize because we're not able to really dive deep into this because that would take too long. And we're giving a very brief overview, but what I'm hoping is by bringing this up, it sparks interest and gets you to go and research this. Because At the end of the day, I can tell you all the things that happened, dates, times, hours, minutes, and it's just information.
Well, the idea of the channel was to get people interested in history and hopefully get them interested in doing some more research on their own.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that this has sparked an interest and maybe you'll go take a look, because I think a lot of life lessons can be learned by looking at the story of MacArthur. From MacArthur's rise to popularity, how that was done, and then if you really dive deep into it, you can find that there were certain things that were said, there were certain things that were done, it was done a certain way, and you can really learn how we get these images of people. And at the end of the day, they're just as flawed as you and I. It's just they have a different spotlight. That's all. And so, in closing of this, I really hope that you would take a look at MacArthur and take what you will, and just always remember that in life, that it doesn't matter how big you get, it doesn't matter how popular you are, it doesn't matter how never take for granted where you are in life, and never ever allow your ego to get the best of you, because if you do, just remember, pride comes before the fall.
Indeed.
And I hope, if nothing else, for this 45 minutes that I've gone rambling here.
Well, it is your name.
It is, yes. That you take that's the one takeaway. That you remember to stop, look around you, remember where you came from, remember how you got there, and remember those that got you there. And not only that, but in all the things I would say as part of my morning rant, start celebrating stuff. Stop focusing on all the negative garbage, because there's enough of that. You can find it everywhere you turn. Start celebrating stuff. Start listening. And just be good to each other. Because at the end of the day, none of this matters. How many likes you get on Twitter doesn't matter. How many likes you get on Facebook really don't fucking matter. None of it does. What matters is the friendships, the memories, and the laughter along the way. So, unless you have any additions, I want to wrap this up.
Well, if you'll give me just a moment, Colin P is asked about my background. So I'm going to turn off my webcam here so you can see it in full. Oops, hit the wrong button there. There we go. So this background was made by Yitza Lemons. He has a great channel. I put a link in the text chat for you. Go check out his channel. He's done a lot of avatars for the community. He's done mine. He's done several for you, Robert, hasn't he?
Yes. Yes. He's done this one. He's done the one for Doom. He's done the one for all my channels. Rambling Canuck, both my avatars were done by Yitzy. History with R&R, we wouldn't have this wonderful background that is sitting behind us if it wasn't for Yitzy. So we're always very appreciative of Yitzy and everything he's done.
So go check his channel out, support him. If you need an avatar for your channel, I highly recommend him. But what this is the radio reporter that I play on the radio plays. So that's Jeff Franklin. That's me. I'm in a lifeboat for the Titanic. I've got the Hindenburg behind me. I've got sharks in the water. There's a bomb in the water. There's the Tunguska meteor coming down. So a lot of things going off, a volcano going off. So I asked him to do that for me, and that's what he came up with, and I love it. So thank you, Yitza, for doing this. Thank you for supporting all the different channels, all the different people that are on YouTube. You are a great asset for the community, a great friend, and I'm just so glad I've met you and that you're here. And I hope that answered your question, Colin P. I'll turn on my webcam.
All right, and with that, I'm going to end this as Doom used to all the time. Didn't matter if it was daytime, morning, or night. I'm going to end it the same way he would always end it, just kind of as my tribute to my good friend there. Thank you all for coming, and until next time, thank you and good night.